Today, it's concrete time. I'm going to show you how to mix and pour concrete by yourself using a rental mixer and bags. I have a few simple but overlooked tips that can streamline the mixing process and make it easier. I was asked to transform my parents' backyard, and that's what we're doing. I'm putting in a massive 40-foot by 16-foot paving stone patio that is absolutely stunning. In past videos, we've removed the existing deck, chopped out an old tree stump, and filled the area with gravel. Let's get into it. I started by taking out the sodden soil along the edge of the patio in order to put in some conduit. I also had to dig up the area by the driveway to make gas line changes. Both of these will be covered by concrete today. In order to prep the area, I manually compacted some of the soil that was removed from the conduit. Lastly, 4 inches of gravel was compacted into the trench, bringing it to the level of the bottom of the existing slab. I was concerned the new concrete would separate from the existing slab, so I wanted to pin the slab. I go through this in more detail in the previous video, but I used 3/8-inch rod at approximately 16 inches or so spacing. I used steel rod instead of rebar because I wanted to weld the paver retaining edging to the pins. I would recommend that you use rebar and keep the pins centered in the existing slab. The pin should extend 12 inches out in general, trying to keep a full 2 inches of concrete at all times around the pin. So today we're going to get this packed back in, get the asphalt cut back to that line there. This will get filled with concrete. This will get filled with concrete all the way along here. The edging went in everywhere. So we'll get after it, get the concrete in. I'm just doing a really simple concrete form here. We're just going to take some junk 2x6 here to put on the side, and we'll just secure that to the form edging that we're going to use to support the patio stones. So I've got some of this rotted out old 2x8 cedar tacked onto here. I just used pan head screws on the top to hold it in. It'll just keep this nice and straight, block the concrete from coming through. Some areas like this, I'll just throw some dirt in there to stop it from coming out, and that'll be good for this area. We'll take a board and block off this end too, and then dig this out a little bit to be a full 3.5 inches deep. Okay, we got this all framed up, 2x4 here on the end with some stakes putting it in. We've got the board blocking it. I went and stuck some clay on the backside just wherever there was light showing under it. So this guy here is ready to pour. This we've done some cleanup on, but it still needs a lot of work. So we can take this fence out, cut the asphalt here so that we have a nice clean line that we can pour to. On this extension here, I'm pouring a slab that's 1 foot by 14 feet. At 4 inches thick, that's approximately 14 bags of concrete. All right, we have the concrete staged out. Hopefully, as we move along, we can get rid of some bags. So we're gonna be mixing in this rental mixer. I'll dump in here as we go, and then I'll use either that 2x8 over there, or this 2x4, that's seen better days, to screed it out. And then I have an 18-inch float to float it out, or trowel, a flat trowel. I use that for mostly doing flat ceilings. We'll use it for this. So we overbought concrete. We had planned a 4-inch pour here. Most of this is more like 3.5. So we should have excess bags at the end, probably use them up over here. So let's get mixing and get going. So now I'm gonna be bitterly complaining that it's finally nice outside because it's hot. What I like to do when I'm using the bags is flip it over, look at what the amount of water you're supposed to use this. So what I'll do is I'll get a bucket. I'll measure for 2 bags. So I'll measure 5 liters, and then I'll mark a line on the bucket so that you can fill to that line each time and dump it in and not really have to pay attention to what you're doing for how much water you have. It just makes it a heck of a lot easier. I had good luck doing this for a shed pad before, so we'll try it again for this. What's even better is if your dad has a bucket that's already pre-marked. So we'll just fill this to 5 liters. We'll do 2 bags at a time. This mixer says, I think it said that it'll do 2 cubic feet at a time, which would be 4 bags. But we'll go with 2 to start, see how it does. And then maybe I throw another 2 in. Okay, so just past 5 liters. I always like using these because this stuff is absolutely brutal on your hands. Did he say whether you're supposed to mix with this vertical, or I'm gonna assume that means it doesn't matter? So it was a mistake to use the mixer vertically, because what ended up happening is when I poured the water in the concrete, the mixer paddles are on the side. So what ended up happening was all of the concrete got matted up on the back and made the first couple pours a little bit dry. Oh, I guess I can't put this in with it on. So you're gonna wanna use a knife. I used a trowel here to cut the bag. it just works a lot better. Once you get it slit a little bit, once you lift up the bag, usually the weight of the concrete is enough to just rip the bag open. It dumps right in. You'll see later in the video I slosh it all over the place sometimes, but that's kind of what you got to deal with mixing concrete. That's good. You can mix concrete by hand, but the biggest problem with mixing concrete by hand is that it takes exponentially longer and you end up with a little bit substandard concrete because you slosh it out of your wheelbarrow, and you can usually only effectively mix one bag of concrete at the time. I have poured a garden curb that used a paddle mixer in a bucket, mixing kind of a half bag at a time, and that worked okay, but I only had to mix about 5 bags where we have 17 to mix here for this one section of the patio. On this extension here, I'm pouring a slab that's 1 foot by 14 feet. At 4 inches thick, that's approximately 14 bags of concrete. When you're doing this, make sure to check your bags, since some of the places have started to sell smaller bags, and that would mean that you'd actually need a lot more. It's always more bags of concrete than you think you'll need for this kind of work, so make sure you actually measure it and do the math on it. I've mixed similar quantities of concrete by hand in a wheelbarrow before, and it's not really a fun process at all. For this much concrete, it's best to rent a mixer. They're pretty inexpensive for the time that you'll need them for, and there's a huge mess in time savings by using them. You'll also get a way more consistent concrete with them than mixing them by hand. With the 2 slabs combined that I needed to pour, it only made sense to do it with a mixer, and it's not really at a size where you can get a ready mix truck cost effectively, but that is an option if you're willing to spend the money for the short load fees, because the actual concrete is much, much, much cheaper than bags. I always mix by putting in the water first. In these small mixers, I find that it stops the big dry sections of concrete from sticking to the inside of the mixer, because that'll ruin your mix ratios. What you should also do is, as you pour, check to make sure that you're not leaving a whole bunch of chunks of dry concrete in the mixer, because that'll also throw off your ratios. Because this is extension of the existing slab and we're putting pavers on it, I spent the most amount of attention on this, on making sure the concrete was exactly the same height as the other slab, rather than making sure that my finish was all that fantastic. If you were going to do this, it's much easier to do a nicer job troweling and doing a broomed finish on the edge of it, and this would have been a perfectly nice extension to the patio. I'm also going and floating it out as I pour. It's not really that large of an area, and it was a pretty hot day. This didn't actually set up as fast as I was used to bagged concrete setting up. Usually the bagged concrete that I've mixed up kicks off really, really fast, and you need to work with it really fast. This one I probably could have got away with just doing the entire pour and then going back and screeding it out. The advantage of doing it as you go is that you know exactly how much concrete that you want to mix. You can see this is a pretty messy job. You end up dumping concrete dust over a lot of things, some concrete on your surface. So if you care about what you're mixing on, then you need to make sure that the surface is protected, because if it's not, you're going to permanently stain that surface. So I found with this specific mixer, it was really good to just lift up on the back of it when you started it, because otherwise what it did is it sloshed the water out, which was really annoying. And when you're pouring it with this specific mixer, I've had mixers that dumped better before, but with this mixer, it really helped. If the mixer was running when you're dumping, it kind of helped push it out instead of making it difficult to get out. So you're seeing it's just the same thing over and over and over here. Mix into the trench, mix into the trench, mix into the trench. This is a process where you need to be uninterrupted doing this. This pour needs to start and finish. You can see this is a pretty messy job. You end up dumping concrete dust over a lot of things. If you care about what you're mixing on, you need to make sure that the surface is protected. So now that all the concrete's in, I can go back and I can just trowel it out. I'm just using a 16-inch flat trowel that I use for popcorn ceilings. It works great for this. If you have a magnesium trowel for this first process, it works better. Some of the concrete stuff that I've done before, the magnesium helps push everything down. So what you're trying to do is get that aggregate in and get it nice and finished. So this edge is done. I'll probably trowel it a couple times as it bleeds off. We have some low spots here, right there. If it raises up over here, we'll build this up with sand or thin set or something like that just to angle it out. But otherwise, pretty happy. We got the other concrete put in, so I'm gonna go and pack back in here, get this all filled in with the gravel from over there, and then we gotta spread some concrete out. Get this guy down in there. Now, like my previous videos, we just need to get this trench packed back in. This was a little bit soupy. It kept sticking to the compactor, so I just kind of had to move it around to do the best that I could. The clay was a little bit wet here still. So we're just throwing it in, compacting it back. You want to do the best job that you can here so that your concrete has a solid surface under it. We also had to deal with the fence posts here from the chain link fence because we wanted those out of the way. Dad had concreted them in back when he put them in, so we had to use the hammer that we purchased on the hammer setting, and we were able to use it to chip out these posts. So it was a really good purchase for that. Any type of fence you're taking out, a jackal is a really good tool to use. You can wrap chains around posts and then wrap the chains around the tongue of the jack and you can pull them out. I've pulled out 100 feet of posts for fencing using a jackal. Yeah. Well, that would have been easier. Here we use the clamps on the frost fencing, tighten them back up, and then use the jackal on those to pull them out. And it made pretty quick work of it. So we're getting final grade here on the patio. Just doing a bit of cleanup, and then it's going to be time to get this pad started. So this one was a little bit smaller pad. We had 12 bags here, and I think I used another couple after this was finished. So it's the same process again. Water goes in, concrete goes in, and just start getting it in. With a little bit of a pad here, bigger pad here, like this is a pad that you could use for a narrow shed or something like that, but the process is the same. You need to do a little bit better job of floating it out. I use a rake here to spread it because I had to dump from one side of the patio. So spread the concrete out. And here I'm getting, I think I got 3 or 4 loads in before I did anything with it. So I just mixed and piled the concrete into the actual form, pulled it with the rake there, and got it ready. Then once I got enough going, I got a load mixing and then started with the 2x6, but a 2x6 float to start, get it floated out and moved around. If you're gonna do bag concrete, you gotta get it going. You gotta get more bags in your mixer, you gotta get it mixing, you gotta get it dumped into the forms so that way you can get going. Faster you can do this process, the better off you're gonna be at the end of the day. So again, I'm using something a little bit longer. You wouldn't normally do this kind of technique where I'm riding it on the existing slab, but I want to try and also keep this slab at the same height. If you were doing a shed here, you'd want it level or sloped out to your doorway. But here I want it at the same level and at the same height of the existing slab so that the patio stone can continue on it without any interruption. So you see the rough area to the left there of me as I'm troweling out this concrete. The reason that it's rough is because I haven't pushed the aggregate down into the mix yet and raised up all of the sand to the surface, which is what gives the nice finish to the top of the concrete. So once I do that, it all smooths out. I did screw this one up. I should have gone back and I should have troweled it another couple times as it bled water off. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out overall. It would have been nice to do some of the edge finishing and to put a nice broom finish on it, but for what I'm using it for, it's going to be perfectly fine. Yesterday afternoon, we ended up getting all of the concrete in. Looks pretty good. So it's still a little bit soft. I forgot to trowel the second slab the second time, which is a little bit annoying. So you get this, you can still see my trowel marks where if I would have actually spent some time and done a second trowel on it, all of this would be a lot nicer, but it's going under a patio. And yesterday the gas fitter came, did all the changes, and man, does it make a huge difference to this backyard. There is now no longer a gas line coming down from here. It really cleans up this backyard, gets all this pipe out of the way and relocates it back to here. And then he tightened up this side of it. If you're with me here at the end of the video, thank you so much for your support. If you enjoyed the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. As a brand new channel, it helps a ton. See you next time.